where we were looking for personal liberation, the Gen Xers probably saw the chaos that most boomers were living in at various points and want security of place and security and a place to be that's safe. I think for the Gen Y or the millennials or the net gen, as sometimes they're called, I think there it's about being networked. It's about they want to be part of the herd. You think about their use of social media. And I can remember debates about, even just 3 or 4 years ago, should companies ban access to Facebook or LinkedIn from their work laptops? Certainly here in Britain, and I know in the US, that debate's dead because they know if you do ban it, they'll just find workarounds. You know, you can't stop them networking. So then you have to find a way of managing it positively for the company as well as the individuals concerned. And I think their dilemma around work is they want to be networked, they want to be part of everything, part of the herd. But also we know from research that they're constantly needing feedback. And I class this as it's about, you've got to recognize the wonder of me, that I'm rather remarkable or the like. So if you think about people in the workplace are bringing with them these types of dilemmas, that's the construct that they're kind of working between the two ends of. That's my contention and what my research has shown around that. What's increasingly interesting is that for the workplace now is where we've got both boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z starting to join, who's the ones after Gen Y. Not much research on Gen Z yet, it's starting to happen. And what I think is interesting then is the relationship between these. I know from a project I've been working on in India, where a lot of the large Indian corporations are very anxious about the fact that by 2014, they're going to have 4 generations in the workplace, and the age gap between the oldest board member and the newest entrant is likely to be over 50 years. And they're wondering, what does that mean in terms of leadership, in terms of collaboration, in terms of affiliation, in terms of focus, and all sorts of things. And I'm assuming probably that the Pakistan, if you look at the generations in Pakistan, which is where most of you on the call are from, that you'll have something similar starting to happen, and that there may be some bumps in the road as the generations begin to work together. I think each generation has spurned its own kind of organization development. So the 22 to 45, they call that the lost generation. That's the generation that certainly went through huge amounts of social change as the world was reordered through conflict and through decolonization, through all sorts of those kind of activities. And that they're generally known as, I say, the lost generation, if you read the generational literature. And their kind of OD that was being practiced then, and you could say it started with Taylorism, get a bigger shovel and that'll make people more productive. Group dynamics began to form then based upon Kurt Lewin's work and forces and drivers. The boomers, I think we had much more, if you look here at the list of things, I don't intend to read it out, but there was everything from action research to chaos theory, future search. So a bit more new agey the boomers kind of got into. The boomers, I think, had a natural interest or a developed interest in spirituality, and a lot of that was brought into their relationship with how change and OD should be managed. I think the counter reaction to that from Gen X was, we need things that are more feet on the ground. So if you look at what I would class as the Gen X relationship to OD and what they've developed, it is the Six Sigma agile, it's QE, it's re-engineering. It's very earthed, it's grounded, as opposed to a bit, people would maybe say, where the boomers gave OD its airy-fairy, soft stuff image. For the Gen Y and the Net Gen, I don't think we know yet what kind of OD is going to be best placed to help them make the changes when they're leading the workplace. It'll have to be something, I guess, more around viral change, around network change, something that involves probably mass participation and the like. So I said I'd come back to popular culture. I now believe very strongly that most people take their models of change as a combination of the generational issues, which is intuitive and it's from their life experience, but also from popular culture. Now, this is the list that I took of sort of UK/European, what I would call reality television programs. Now, I'm assuming, and having talked to Asif, that in Pakistan, and I also know across Southeast Asia, having traveled there a lot, put the TV on, that these programs exist either they've been bought in from Europe or the US, or they've got the homegrown versions. So the talent shows, there's stuff to do with work. The Apprentice is really famous. There are makeover shows, whether it be your house or yourself that needs to be made over, or your dog even. And then there are lifestyle ones, where so from Super Nanny to Come Dine With Me, or all sorts of these shows. What I think these shows have done, at the heart of all these shows, are issues to do with personal transformation and change. And what these shows actually show people is that that can happen in an hour. I think this is really interesting, where it's as we've grown kind of more used to television and multimedia, and that we have this desire for more immediacy, our ability, I think, to sustain tension, whether it be creative tension or whatever, over a long period of time has gone. In the UK here at the moment, I imagine this also would be true in Pakistan. When I was growing up, so say in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, you would often have 12-part television series that would run once a week for 12 weeks. That's getting less and less. Now, some would say that's about cost. I would argue that it's more to do with keeping people's attention for 12 weeks. And what we often find increasingly now is if something's got 4 episodes to it, it's played out over 4 days. Because advertisers, in particular, don't want to lose people's business by having it over 4 weeks. They think, people forget. There's so much choice, so much media to choose from nowadays that they'll just choose another channel and watch that. So we tend to have things squeezed much more. So I think we have now the inability to sustain tension that we used to have, plus also all these, and I could have done a list probably 4 times as big as this when I started just searching for what reality TV programs were on in Britain or have been on in the last 2 or 3 years. These all show people making personal transformations. Usually the program lasts for an hour. They all have a similar story arc. So there's an expert, in inverted commas, who comes in to help a family, help an individual. They start with their help. There's a point where their help is rejected. There's a point where it's accepted. The person then has some experiments. They usually fail. Then the expert comes back, makes a couple more interventions, and then they succeed, and everybody cries at the end. And it's all marvelous and wonderful. And I think that is now how people think organization change ought to be. They don't want a 5-year vision of where they're going. They want it to have that level of immediacy. They also, what's very interesting, I think my next slide touches on this, yeah. So what they show, and I'll come through on this one with you, is always the people, one second, the people who lead these programs are very rarely psychologists or therapists. A lot of the time they are what I would call a gifted amateur. Now, what the television program doesn't show, of course, is all the professionals behind the scenes who are supporting these people. What they tend to show is somebody who's very televisual, and who, as I say, is probably an amateur in this area. They may have lots of experience with the television program, but they've not done this, the 10,000 hours that we're all supposed to do to become an expert. And I think this then makes people start thinking about our kind of world of organization change. So when we think about transformation and change in organizational terms, they're thinking, well, anybody can do it. All we need is a gifted amateur. As I said, I gave you my blog reference at the beginning, so The Illusion of Work. You'll see one of my posts is called The Gifted Amateur, and you may want to read what I wrote there, and also there's some great comments on that, so have a look if you like. So there's the idea is you perhaps don't need OD people, or we can do it ourselves. We've also can't manage this sustained tension, so 3-year, 5-year visions people aren't interested in. And I think particularly in some of what from the West we would call the newly developing economies or the emerging markets, where people are seeking to often CV build. They're not going to be there for 5 years or 3 years. You may be lucky to keep them for 18 months. So, launching a change that's a journey for change. And again, sorry, I don't know quite what happened there, but there was a strange message about recordings on and off. So again, another one of my hobby horses for change is when people say, oh, it's a journey. I think journeys are for hobbits. So you need to read Lord of the Rings or you know, The Hobbit to understand that. A lot of people don't want to go on a journey. They want it now because their experience.
Ian, we can barely.
Can you struggling to hear me?
Yes. Can you turn your microphone up a little bit?
I think it's on full.
Oh, is
Can
it?
you hear
Okay.
me? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, but it's hard to understand what you're saying.
Oh, okay. I'll talk
If you
loud.
if you click on little receiver thing on the left, and just pull down the menu, and there's a little not your computers, but your web conference. There's a little microphone there.
I don't actually have that.
Let me try.
Ah, here. Yep, I've got
There
it.
you go. Yep.
Yeah. So is that better?
Much better. Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Yeah. So what I was sort of saying is that here is what I think that popular culture has impacted on the kind of way in which change is changing. So I think people struggle to manage the tension that we expect them to manage over a long period of time. We talk about burning platforms. They don't work, and they don't work for the reasons listed as number 3 on here, in that I think we need to find ways of personalizing, customizing, and making change fully inclusive. And if the burning platform is the organization's burning platform, for the individuals it will no longer work. I think the amateurism that we see in popular culture leads people to believe, rightly or wrongly, that actually we can feel our way through change, that intuition and ideas are all that's needed, and then we feel along the way. So the kind of professional expertise that people like us bring, people don't see, because what they're used to in popular culture is that's behind the scenes. All of this television stuff is low cost and mass market. That's why there is so much of it. It costs nothing, it covers a mass market, and it actually gets people hooked. People, I think, are looking to see that reflected in how change is managed and helped. So how do we make change low cost? How do you actually make it mass market and making it public? I certainly know when I was growing up, and I'm sure this is true for other people on the call, that if you had personal issues, you didn't air them in public. The idea of going on a television show to say that I don't dress properly, I don't know how to look good, would have been mortifying. You might have taken advice from your mum or your dad or your best friend, but you certainly would have told the world that you're a scruffy person who can't dress properly. Whereas now people seem to queue up to do things in public. And I think that's also true of change. People are looking for that kind of openness around change, where a lot of change that OD people are leading happens behind the scenes. We need to find a way of turning that around. I think changes now needs to be viral. It's not marketed. So many people, when I've done change surveys in the past about how has change, been worked in this corporation, how has it helped and supported, have felt that it was all just a public relations and a marketing exercise. People want to be participants of the change, not just spectators of it. And we have to find ways of absolutely grabbing people's attention. There's a term now used in the web world called the attention